Welcome back, everyone, once again to a new installment. Hopefully, the final attempt at a Crimson Tide episode. I'm Jeff.
I'm Ron.
Man, I mean,
Good.
it wouldn't be a month of Screenplay Rewind if we didn't have DEFCON 3 at the recording studio.
This is probably going to be one of our best episodes because we've never rehearsed one before. We had a rehearsal last night.
Well, we had a rehearsal for our bullshit section that everyone hates, unfortunately.
I think it's fun.
If only we rehearsed the part that people liked.
I know, right? It really shoots down my whole, I want to do a second podcast. It's just the green room. But that's the part everybody hates, like you said.
I feel like not. Let's just real quickly address the question while we're on the topic of it.
Okay.
Because we had a comment. I'll let Ron pull up the details here momentarily, but we had someone react pretty much saying like they are going to be unsubscribing because of our response about what we're talking about. Pretty much most of our replies are people thinking that they're logging on to watch the movie, and it is not the movie, unfortunately.
Never change, YouTube. Never change.
Never change. But there looked to have been some confusion because the username that I went back and researched that we were replying to was a totally different username, and to me, it looked pretty cut and dry that the comment wasn't them joking. So, do you have the comment pulled up now? You don't have to read off like the whole thing, but just like the gist of it.
Yeah. Basically, they just seemed unhappy with our reply to their Color Out of Space comment, which they didn't leave one on Color Out of Space.
Yeah, unless it was removed. But then I went back and listened to the episode, and
Right.
the one that we specifically talked about in the reply section was a totally different username, and to me seemed cut and dry. So if it was on a different episode that we're not remembering, if you were joking and we mistook it as being serious, we apologize. It's just you have to understand, like, what is it, 99% of our comments are people upset that it's not the movie.
Yeah.
And then the other remaining percentage,
especially if it's Kung Fu Hustle, it's people not happy about it not being the movie.
Yeah. So if we ever did take a response out of context, I legitimately do apologize. The one we were replying to in that instance seemed pretty cut and dry. I replied to the person trying to figure out if it was a different comment, and they never replied. So if they don't hear this, there's not much we can do, but we tried. We tried.
Yeah, I would just add, like, text has no tone. So
yeah,
if 95% of what we get is "go fuck yourself," or that
we're gonna round it. It's
yeah,
like
that one guy that told us to kill ourselves or whatever. Like, we're gonna round it.
Especially when you're diving into YouTube comments, especially.
Which I don't know why we do, but it is fun to some degree.
I mean, where else would I get my material for the quote tweet section on our Twitter page?
Do you still do that?
On occasion. We still got some of those on there. It's fun. But yeah, I'm expecting the worst, and am kind of like rounding down on tone, unfortunately, down to the typical kind of response we get, which is hostile. But today we have some other questions that were not hostile. So Ron, would you like to get to those?
First thing I want to say is Bobby says that he can confirm my story as fact that I told on Beer Fest
about you
being the best wingman ever while
the
drunk.
Greatest wingman of all time.
Yeah, so Bobby says he can confirm, because I think I said in the episode that he has heard that story from me and Steve separately.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then he in fact confirms it. And then he also asks, in honor of Beer Fest, what is your favorite beer?
So probably my favorite one, even though it's not one I drink all the time, because if I did, it's more of like a sometimes kind of food for me, not like an all time thing. I really like Boston Lager from Samuel Adams.
I've never had that one.
I let you try it a few years ago.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I brought over a 6-pack of it. I remember you liking it.
Yeah, I have zero memory. I must have really liked it. 'Cause I have zero memory of that.
The one that you liked the best was the greenhouse gin that you got so fucked up that you remember about 5 minutes of the 2-hour runtime of Cabin in the Woods.
Dude, that was a good night.
That wasn't a good night. That was a great night.
All I remember is, what was it? Dad Bulge or something like that? That's all I remember from that night.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God. I haven't seen the movie probably since then. And I was like, what, like
Funny,
6-7
I
years
still
ago
haven't
now?
seen it. I remember the motorcycle too. That's the only two things I remember.
We gotta watch it again at some point because you will legitimately like it once you have enough cognitive function to be able to fucking remember it.
Oh,
you were full blown Barry mode. Like,
was it as bad as Scott Pilgrim?
I think you were more drunk during Cabin in the Woods because you remember Scott Pilgrim. You don't fucking remember anything about Cabin in the Woods.
I especially remember that one scene in Scott Pilgrim. I had you rewind it like 10 times.
I mean, it's maybe the greatest scene of all time in any piece of cinematic art.
Art. That scene is definitely art.
It's art, pure unadulterated art.
Oh god.
So my favorite one is probably Boston Lager. The one I probably drink the most often is probably like Dos Equis or like just Michelob Ultras. I don't drink as much as I used to.
Yeah.
So, what was yours?
I've never been a huge beer fan, so I always just, when I was out, would get like Budweiser or like Bud Select.
The cheap thing.
Yeah. Bud Select would be like $8 a bottle, so most of the time it was just a regular Budweiser because there'd be like $6 a bottle.
That's why like Michelob is like I feel like out of the cheaper ones, Michelob is the best like tasting one. That's the one I kind of default to.
If I'm going out to the store and buying beer, I'm getting Michelob Ultra. I know most people just call it piss water or whatever, but like I don't know, it's beer. And now that Oklahoma has 6-point beer, it actually does something.
A lot of people kind of lump in like Michelob with the, like the fucking kind of PBR style, like the cheapest shit we can get in like Miller Lite and stuff. And it's like, to me, Michelob has always tasted a little bit like not great, but of the cheaper options, the best.
Right. It up till a few years ago, all beer was pretty much bad in Oklahoma because we had 3-point beer or whatever, and breweries don't reformulate their beer for flavor. They just make the one batch and just cut the alcohol down for the places that don't. So nothing tastes right. If you went somewhere else, even just a Budweiser, if you went somewhere else and got a Budweiser, it tasted completely different if you weren't in Oklahoma. So all beer was pretty much shit here anyway for a long time till I say a few years ago. It's probably been like a decade or more now. But
dude, I have no concept of time.
I don't either. This year went so fast for me.
My brain is the goddamn blasted Heath from Color Out of Space, dude.
Oh, blasted Heath, man. I think I saw them at the BOK Center. Pretty sure I made that joke already.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
What episode is this? Like 115? Like, we've made every fucking joke by now. Everything is just a goddamn repeat.
It's true. Yeah, this is 113, I believe.
Crazy.
Unless my numbering got off.
So, did you say what your, like, if you're splurging there, like, what your favorite one is?
I usually just got, like, Budweiser or Bud Select. I didn't really experiment with beer much.
Never really experimented with it. So, as an alternative, what's your favorite, like, cocktail? Like, is it gin and tonic? Because that's my favorite one.
Gin and tonic was after I was married. I discovered those. I usually did like Long Island iced tea, or what else? I did a lot of Long Island iced teas when I was looking to get fucked up because it doesn't take very many of those. And we do like kamikaze shots because they're easy to take.
The main one I would be doing if I was just looking to get absolutely blasted is the Limerick lemonades.
Yeah, you introduced me to those.
Holy fuck, dude. Jameson whiskey plus lemonade equals it's candy that'll get you drunk.
Yeah, it's weird how it doesn't taste like whiskey or lemonade. And that's the only two ingredients in it.
And it's, dude, you can make it half Jameson. there can be so much alcohol in that fucking cup you're drinking, and you won't be able to taste it. It's dangerous, man.
It's so dangerous. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I did a lot of Long Island iced teas, or like if I'd just gotten off work and went over to the pool hall, I would just straight up do a vodka and Red Bull.
Yeah, can't go wrong.
Yeah.
Just gonna...
I was a simple man. I didn't have a lot of money or anything, so
I remember experimenting a lot with like just kind of. Have you ever been to one of the liquor stores and done like the pick six, where you can pick like 6 of the different beers and just kind of like hodgepodge a 6-pack together?
no.
That was how I kind of like would test out different ones. Pretty much, I'm cool with anything except for I never found an IPA that I like. They're all just kind of fucking weird to me. Like they're not terrible, but did not enjoy IPA.
I drink so little. I've always heard IPA. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that means.
It's kind of hard to explain. They're the most like unique one to me, because you know how like you can have like a beer, an ale, and a lager, and it's like, yeah, they're different, but it's beer. Like IPAs just taste drastically different from the rest of the bunch to me. It's like I just never had a taste for it.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a really good ongoing. Well, it was ongoing in one episode. I just meant to say a really good joke in one episode of Superstore, where there's a group of people selling their craft beer, and I can't remember the character's name, but the guy that's in the wheelchair is like yours and mine spirit animal.
Mm-hmm.
He rolls up to the thing, takes one sip, and he goes, "Yeah, that's Budweiser." And they get all offended and yell and scream at him and whatever. And then the entire episode, he keeps rolling up to him, trying to get them to admit that it's Budweiser. And then finally, at the end of the episode, she admits that, yeah, they just took the labels off of Budweiser and put new labels on it. But it was the whole thing was really funny because it's just this these really snooty craft beer people, and he takes a drink of it, and he's just like, "Yeah, that's Budweiser," and they get all pissed. It's so good.
You ever seen the Penn and Teller where they make this little like makeshift restaurant, and it is specifically them, quote unquote, selling like fancy different waters? And
is it just tap?
It's literally just them with a garden hose in the back alleyway, just filling up the ship with the garden hose. But the way that they present them in the different cups and the way they're selling them, they're cutting back and forth. I think this was from their bullshit show. I think
right.
That's where and it's cutting. It's so funny because it'll be like them at a table, or you know, like they have like their waiters, you know, like that are, you know, in on the thing.
Right.
So that like the waiter will be describing like all the different, like this one is like, you know, more of like an earthy substance, and like they're all these like buzzwords and shit. And
yeah,
they're doing
infused with these minerals.
Yeah, they're doing the equivalent of like the patrons are doing like the equivalent of like a wine tasting, where like they'll take a sip of it and it's like, oh yes, I can really feel the, you know, like the earthy undertones and the huskiness of it, and then it hard cuts them to just filling up like 50 bottles at once with the fucking garden hose, and it's one of my favorite things I've ever seen.
Penn and Teller, man, I swear to God, they're just the best.
Those dudes came out of the womb giving zero fucks, and I love them for that. Like they just couldn't give less of a shit.
Desert Bus. I mean, come on. Just Desert Bus alone.
Man, I gotta find that. I bet I can find that on YouTube though. That water tasting clip from bullshit. Gotta be out there somewhere. Also, I was looking up IPA to figure out the exact like.
See, every time I've looked it up, it just leads to further questions.
Speaking of like further questions, so under the AI overview, which is, you know, the end all be all knowledge base of the internet and mankind, the India Pale Ale is a hoppy style of beer that originated as an export beer to India. IPAs can vary in style, with West Coast IPAs being crisp and sharp, and IPAs brewed with oats having a softer mouthfeel. And I don't like reading the term softer mouthfeel on the internet, so I'm just gonna back off this page.
You know, if it's not a hard throbbing mouthfeel, I'm out.
Yeah. Just, you gotta get the earthy undertones of the softer mouthfeel.
The softer mouthfeel.
Fuck, dude.
Oh, fuck me. Should I redo my book report real fast?
Yeah, was that our last question that we had?
Yes, that was all I had. I tried, but I can't get into Spotify's website. It keeps crashing. So
Oh, good.
we've never had anyone leave a comment over there.
That
But
would be the one time though. The time we can't
yeah.
log in.
Yeah, oh, I'm logged in. I can get anywhere else, but comments keeps crashing the tab. So there's one hell of a comment over there, Jeff. It keeps crashing the tab every time I bring it up. So yeah, I tried to get over there. So as far as I know, as far as what I have access to, that's all I got.
Okay. Yeah,
but funny, I feel like I just had this conversation with you. It's so weird.
Nah.
I listened to Adam Neville's The Ritual on Audible. For some reason that was very difficult for me to say. We covered The Ritual on episode 35 of the podcast. That's why I brought up Spotify. I wanted to see when exactly we posted that. Anyways, the first half of the book is extremely faithful to the movie, and the second half is very different. It spends all the time in the village, but it's not a village. It's one house with 4 people in it. And like I was saying, the only bad thing about the narrator is he sounds like the Swedish chef when he's doing the Norwegian accent. Yeah, he's going full that. Like he's maybe 1 letter grade above that, and that's it. But
Bloodborne boss.
So that's one thing I was gonna say. It's a different god.
Interesting. What's the one in the book?
The one in the book, they say its name a couple times, but it's okay. Do you remember in the attic of the cabin that they stay in, there was that goat-like effigy?
Yes.
It's the goat one.
So not the Bloodborne boss.
It sounds very Bloodborne-y still.
Okay.
Let's see. It is more like Capra Demon sounding.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't
So more
know.
like kind of like goat creature instead of like Lovecraftian kind of thing where it's
still like made out of wood and stuff. Yeah, see, I don't know why I thought Googling this would be helpful, because once you look at the way it's written out in Scandinavian, right, in Norwegian, I can't tell you if that's the word they're saying or not in the audiobook. But yeah, it's more of a goat thing. It's on 2 legs, and it will run after the main guy on all 4s and then stand up and things like that, whereas the other one was more moose-like in the movie. But it's basically the same concept.
My main question I had, how much of the like kind of trippy they're walking through the woods but then they turn a corner into like the convenience store is there in the book? Because that was always like my favorite thing about the movie was the kind of like weird kind of like parallel planes that the woods and shit and the creature were like sending them to like different realms and shit pretty much.
Yep, it did none of that.
Really?
Absolutely none. That's totally for the movie. Also, there was no 5th friend. There was only the 4. They hate Luke for a different reason in the movie.
Ah.
Yeah,
so you still recommend checking it out even though it's like so different?
Yeah. It's still really good. It works really good in like book format. I see why they made the changes they made in the movie, because that works better. Movies are visual medium, right? So turn the corner back into the convenience store when you're in the middle of the woods, but like you're still clearly in the woods, but there's like shelving and lights hanging and stuff. Yeah. That works a lot better for a movie. But the big crux of the whole thing is that they hate Luke for economic reasons, because he's still living the same life when they were in college, and he's still got an hourly pay wage and things like that. That's why they're mad at him.
What? Like, that's supposed to be like the crux of the story to me, though, is like...
Yeah.
Interesting. But that's one of those things where it's almost like almost like a hindsight being 2020 thing. Like it's easy to Monday morning quarterback the book into a movie when you're adapting it and you're looking at the thing in its entirety and you can immediately tell like we're gonna take this and this, change this, and it's like a very kind of streamlined process. But when you're just sitting down to write a fucking book, it's not that easy. Like
yeah, it's pretty weak. But so their motivations among the characters, like they still treat him exactly the same as they did in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But it's for economic reasons, and there's a little bit more to it than that, but that gets into spoiler territory.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a lot weaker than in the book. Than like he was in the convenience store with a friend when he died. That's a lot stronger concept. Everything else that happens in the woods though is a lot scarier in ways, because in the movie they have a certain amount of time to work with. Right, they're on the clock. In the book, they get stalked a lot longer, and it messes with them a lot more.
I like it. It's almost like more like Blair Witch. Then it's just like that's kind of it's like that's more of the real draw of the book is
the
kind of taking it.
The prologue to the book is them standing at the bottom of a tree, looking at an animal that's been splayed open ritualistically and stuck to the top of the tree, like it does them. And them discussing this thing and finding this thing ends, and chapter 1 is literally the first line is 4 hours earlier, and it's them and it's them on the trail and then deciding to take the shortcut and all that, and then they're not even in the woods yet, but it opens with them finding the animal in the tree and then cuts to 4 hours earlier. I was like, that's something you only see in TV. That's a really strong opening. Also they talk about, so one thing about the movie, I don't think I might not have said it in the episode because I was trying to remember if I did or not. They actually talk about what the ritual is in the second half of the book, because they're keeping him alive to sacrifice him as a live sacrifice to the thing in the woods.
Yeah, that was always kind of because the movie twisted into like the third act is like breakneck speed.
Yeah.
So they're not taking time to explain shit. It's like we're ramping up to 11.
Yeah. Also, you're supposed to hate everybody living in this house, and while the village sacrificed his buddy, right, you see that happen in the movie. There's like that one girl in the village when they're like beating him and stuff that comes in and just cups his ears so he doesn't have to listen to his friend being beaten and stuff. Like there's a little bit of like these people are unwilling participants. In the book, these three chuckle fucks and the old lady are totally implicit in this. They are totally into this.
Gotcha. Okay, final question. Does the old lady get sucker punched? Because that's the most important scene in the movie.
The old lady is a super interesting character, actually. She's a very complex character. She does not get sucker punched. But there's a
0
lot
out of 10. I'm gonna go to Goodreads right now.
There's a lot more to that character in the book. But yeah, it's a good book. I listened to it in audiobook form. It works pretty good as an audiobook because there's a lot going on with the friends and stuff, a lot of dialogue happening. The person that read it, I keep saying that. I actually said it in our rehearsal yesterday. I should probably open up Audible real quick and get his name. Oh God, forgot. Why are you this way,
check
Audible?
it out. I think I have a credit. I have the Audible plan. Excuse me, where you get like a credit every other month because I don't listen. I don't listen enough to like get the shit every month, but every other month usually seems to work out okay. To where I might grab it because I'm curious.
Yeah, it's Matthew Lloyd Davies, and he's fairly prolific in audiobooks. I have the monthly plan, and it's just included. I didn't have to use a credit for it. So,
nice.
If you have like a plan on Audible, it's probably just included for you.
I will have to go look because I do have a plan in place. It's just not the monthly plan.
But yeah, he does really good at doing a different character for each character in the book. So even if the
Nice.
book doesn't say who's talking, you have a pretty good idea just listening to him. And does really good at the suspenseful parts and stuff. Like when they're being stalked, he'll talk kind of low and slow, and then when they're actively running from it, he'll talk like rushed and hurried as he's
That's
reading it
good.
and stuff. So yeah,
That's good stuff.
he leans into it pretty good. I have another audiobook. I was trying to find it, but I'm not finding it right now. It might be one I listened to on Libby. I've listened to him before. He's pretty good. So,
Nice.
except at Norwegian accents. Bork, bork, bork.
Bork, bork, bork.
Bork, bork, bork.
I have been listening to Midnight in Chernobyl because I love being depressed. And dude, you want to talk about like
Shit's fucked.
I'm only like 2.5 hours into it so far, and it's mostly just been background information about like what people were doing at the time of, you know, like in the lead up to it for the most part, and like some of it is just a description of like explaining the nuclear reaction kind of like at the micro level to kind of give you a baseline understanding of what is about to happen to these people. And Midnight in Chernobyl, written by Adam Higginbotham, and the way that the guy narrates it, it's mostly just recapping like people's like day-to-day lives and these like very very like non-fiction-y things, but it's so fucking engaging. Like I've been very impressed with that because I'm not usually a person to listen or read nonfiction, but man, it's been good. It's really well written and well narrated.
In that same vein, I have more recently been listening to Ghosts of the Tsunami by Richard Lloyd Perry. I'm listening to that through Libby. That is the after the tsunami at the Fukushima power plant. Yeah, that shit's fucked, man. I'm a quarter of the way through it, according to Libby, and so far it's still just been kind of moving between like firsthand accounts of the tsunami coming through. I just now got to the part where it starts talking about there may be trouble at the power plant.
Man, stuff like that is so fucking fascinating to me. When
it's
you're just
pretty horrifying, also.
when you're just hearing about like the guy who was like the plant manager during the meltdown in Chernobyl was like so sick of being overworked like 10 years prior to the lead up to it, like 10 years before it happened. He tried like 2 or 3 times to resign, and because of the way that their politics worked back then, they tore up his resignation letters and made him continue to work. So that was part of the reason why their policies slacked, because the guy was forced to do this job he didn't want to do for 15 years. And it's just like learning little details like that, and then when you know what it snowballs into in the future is fucking haunting and like really tragic. That it's like, see, some of these things might not have happened if they had just let the fucking poor guy, you know, resign back then when he wanted to.
The thing that's crazy about the opening of Ghosts of the Tsunami is we didn't hear much about it over here in the news. We heard that there was an earthquake that led to a tsunami. There was the meltdown at the Fukushima power plant. There was radioactive water and radioactive air. And that was kind of all we heard about. We didn't hear about the hundreds of people that died in the tsunami, really. We didn't hear that the earthquake shifted Japan 4 feet closer to the United States.
Isn't that fucking nuts?
4 feet! An entire fucking country moved 4 feet in an instant.
Crazy.
Like, that's a lot, Jeff. 4 feet? Oh my god. Like, yeah, it's nuts. One thing before we get going here, since you're getting into a little bit of nonfiction stuff, there's a really good book. I can't believe I was about to suggest it and didn't even look up the authors. I just now realized I forgot. It's called The Weather Machine. I've talked to you about it before, but I don't think I talked about it on mic. Book. Yeah, you have to add book. Andrew Blum wrote it. I got through most of it before it went back to Libby and I didn't re-get it. There wasn't an audiobook version of it yet, and now I'm seeing an audiobook version of it, so I'll probably download it.
Nice.
This book, another podcast I listened to that is all about technology and stuff. They covered this book for an episode because this guy Andrew Blum talks about living in New York, and the meteorologists start freaking out about this little tiny dot out in the Atlantic Ocean and how everybody needs to be getting prepared. Everybody needs to be like moving out of the city, evacuating, all this stuff. And it's way out in the middle of the Atlantic because in like 2 weeks, the storm is going to be here. And it's this little bitty tiny dot. And he's like, all right, whatever. Like, you guys can barely predict when it's going to rain today. How are you predicting something 2 weeks out? And just kind of ignored it. That storm eventually became Superstorm Sandy and did millions or billions of dollars worth of damage, and a lot of people got hurt or died, and like it was a big deal. But meteorologists were talking about it like up to 2 weeks before it was even a tropical storm. It was a depression.
Yeah.
And Andrew Blum got to thinking, like, how the hell did they do that? Superstorm Sandy did exactly what they said it was going to do, the entire step of the way. So he got into researching how you predict hurricanes, which got into researching how you predict thunderstorms, which got into how you predict this, because everything is interconnected. And it goes all the way back to, I think the book starts in like the 1600s when this one guy creates 3 mathematical formulas with hundreds of variables in each one. And he says that if you could solve these 3 equations, you could predict the weather. But the problem is, if you had the entire Roman Colosseum full of mathematicians working it constantly, there's so many variables and they change so frequently, you would still never be able to solve them. So his theory was untested. And then in like the 1960s or something, we brought in computers to start forecasting weather, and they could solve the math fast enough. And to this day, we're still using those same 3 equations that guy created to predict the weather.
Who was probably burned for being a witch.
Right? But like all your weather predictions, you just open up your phone, press a button, and you know what the weather's going to be for the next 10 days. And that is based on this one guy hundreds of years ago that came up with 3 equations that said, if you could do this, you could predict the weather, but there's no way to solve these equations. They're unsolvable until we invented computers, and they were able to do it fast enough. Like, the book is fascinating about how that goes.
That dude was the doctor traveling back in time, right? That's the only thing that makes sense to me.
Had to be. But yeah, Andrew Blum, The Weather Machine, it's a really good book about weather forecasting. It's really interesting. And like how it's changed over the years. But it doesn't matter what advancements we've made. Fundamentally, everything is still those same 3 equations. We've added stuff to it. We've taken away stuff. But fundamentally, they're the same 3 equations. Because he just kept going further and further down the rabbit hole. He's like, well, how'd they predict hurricanes? Oh, because they can do this. Well, when the hell did they start doing that? And then he went into that, and one thing led to another, and he ended up writing a whole book about just everything about forecasting because it's all interconnected. One thing leads to another.
It's one of those things that because you can see it on the 6 o'clock news and because you can pull it up on your phone anytime you want, you take it for granted, and it's not even something you think twice about because it's just part of our everyday lives.
Yeah, and there's hundreds of variables that change every second or every few seconds. And you have to calculate all of them at once to even do it. Like, it's crazy. It's a really good book.
Yeah, I'm interested in it. I've been kind of...
The only reason I didn't finish it is Libby took it away. That's the thing about a digital library book is when it's time to return it, it returns itself. So
yeah,
I need to seek out the audiobook because I tend to listen to stuff while I'm doing dishes or folding laundry or whatever. So yeah, I tend to get through them a lot faster that way.
For sure. Yeah, I unfortunately don't get a lot of time to like pick up a book and read it, but I do manage to find some time while I'm like working and doing something kind of like mindless where I can have something going on in the background. I can put on like an audiobook when I'm not listening to like a podcast or
if I'm playing Subnautica or something like that. Those are really good. Any kind of game where you just vibe like that, those are really good games for audiobooks and podcasts.
Nice.
So, what are we doing covering books on this book club style podcast? It's so strange.
I know, right? Actually, like,
What is this show anymore?
I
Who
thought
am
this was
I?
I thought this was America. We don't have to fuck around with books anymore, man. I got fucking TV for that. I got an iPhone for that, dude.
Right?
If you have any, I know we kind of transitioned away from the Q&A section already, but if we didn't already mention, if you have any questions or prompts you would like to discuss at the beginning of the next episode for Ron and myself, you can always email us at screenplayrewind@gmail.com or drop us a comment in the YouTube comments, and we will read it out as a prompt for the next episode. And I think with that, you said we were out of questions, so we can jump right into Crimson Tide. So,
This
spoilers,
movie's scary, Jeff, and stressful.
dude. It is a this movie is one of those to where I think it's executed so well at like raising tension that I know exactly everything that happens, and I'm still like, why are my palms sweaty? It's like the fucking Simpsons, like, Chuckles, I'm in danger. Yeah. So what was your kind of initial reaction to this? This was your first time watching it, I think, right?
Yeah, it was. And I thought for some reason I was expecting I've always heard of this movie. I didn't actually know what it was. This is my first time watching it. And it's a movie that you notice from time to time on IMDb or something. It's not a movie you hear a lot of people talking about constantly. So I didn't know anything about it. I was expecting more like Fury with submarines. This is very different than what I thought it was going to be. And it's kind of right up my alley because, again, going back to books, the Frontier Saga series that I listened to from Rick Brown is very much this for 15 books apart. There's 3 sections, 3 sagas, and all of them are this, essentially.
I think what like initially made me like this movie to the extent to which I do, because I love this movie. I think this movie is like criminally underrated.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially just because of how much it excels in its simplicity. Because what originally made me, and I think it might have been the first thing that got me like on the road to picking it for the show, was I'm pretty sure I referenced this when we covered Pandorum, and how I think the more interesting avenues that we were wishing Pandorum had like picked by making it more of like a psychological kind of thriller, and it being more about the philosophies between like the two main characters and kind of like their back and forth. That's what Crimson Tide is. Like, Crimson Tide is like all about this dynamic between Denzel and Gene Hackman, and it's really interesting. It's like it's from the 90s. It's from Tony Scott. And when you're sitting down, like, I bet a lot of people were kind of like you when they sat down in the theater to watch this back in the day when it came out, or renting it to check it out and sitting down to watch it, they were probably expecting a, like you said, like your more kind of like prototypical submarine kind of showdown movie. But that's not really what this is. Like, they have an action scene in the middle of the movie that is purely there to establish like Denzel's character as a legitimate captain, being able to make like hard decisions. Everything that happens isn't for like the sake of like an action plot. It's not like, it's like the opposite of like a Tom Clancy situation. Like, it's not about the plot, it's about the characters' mentalities. They're kind of like this kind of, it's hard to explain, but it's almost like their kind of showdown they have in just like their philosophical differences of being captains in this situation. And it's like a magic trick in how simple it is versus how, when you kind of like break it down, like how complex it can be. Because further enhanced by just how fucking amazing Denzel and Gene Hackman are in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
The first hour of the movie, they're having to have, like, for the most part, kind of like polite conversations with one another, but you can tell the entire time how much they fucking hate each other.
Yeah.
And that is expertly acted by them. Like, you can tell the second they're talking to each other, they want to fucking kill each other. Like, they can't stand each other, and it's all in their dialogue and the way that they react to one another. And I fucking love their performances so much in this. And man, it's a hell of a movie. Like I feel like every time I sit down to watch it, it's like a fucking roller coaster ride. But at the same time, it's like what makes it like tense is like a lot of the editing and like the camera work and everything. But
Yeah.
when you break it down, it's like it's really just like a clash between these two just polar opposite people put into like an impossible situation. Uh, and yeah, that's like what we were like disappointed in, like in Pandorum, because we were really mad about how, what the gist of Pandorum should have been was the conflict between the two main characters, and then how they became like separated pretty much for the entire second half of the movie, and then it became more about like the zombies and shit, and it just kind of like lost focus. Like this movie, like
Especially since that movie had such a
never
cool
loses.
twist at the end.
Right. And like we were upset about how like it lost focus of what it could have been, and like that's to me like to a T like what Crimson Tide is like, man, it does not lose focus for a second. Like the whole thing, everything is in place for a reason, and it's all very very critical to their conflict.
Yeah, my those Frontier Saga books I mentioned, they treat space combat like naval combat, like the way they have to come about and stuff in this movie, like that entire combat scene is exactly the way combat is in those books too. So, like, I was just like, oh my god, like I'm into this. Like
Right.
this is perfect.
Um
Then the thing that I was gonna say also fundamentally, like obviously one character is being more professional than the other one, but fundamentally neither one of them are really wrong. Like you want to agree with Denzel Washington's character, but at the same time, if he's wrong about what's happening, the World War III can start. But also, if he's right, World War III can start. Like, it's like they're not wrong. One of them's handling it better than the other. But at the same time, it's like there is an they're locked horns in such a way that the audience, you're rooting for Denzel, but at the same time you really don't know if he's even right. You're just rooting for him because of the way he's handling himself.
yeah. And because the movie is walking you through the paces of he is the protagonist.
Right.
He's the character we are first introduced to. He's the character who has the family. He has all of the like the built-in pathos that the like nuts and bolts of a movie with a main character present to you. So you are like just through the way that you have been watching movies your entire life, you are kind of like walk through the steps of wanting to follow his side. And it's Denzel, like one of the most beloved actors of all time. But how cool is it when the conflict between them is like a Twilight Zone paradox? Like this conflict could have been two guys at like in a Twilight Zone episode with just a button on the wall. You could have boiled down this conflict to just two people with a philosophical difference. Both of them at the same time are right. Both of them at the same time are wrong. And which end of the argument do you fall in on? And
Yeah.
it's super like bare bones in that, but like I love stuff like that to where like and I think the movie brilliantly at the end kind of encapsulates the fact that, like we said, like both of them are right and both of them are wrong. Because Denzel's whole thing, we should probably just like real quickly, like again, I think we probably mentioned it, but obviously like spoilers for Crimson Tide.
What?
But the
But I haven't watched it yet, Jeff.
you gotta go fucking watch it, man. The gist of it.
One of these days, what do you think that an episode like that would be like if one of us just didn't watch the movie?
I almost want to do that as like a thought experiment now, just
Like,
to see
I
if like, one
wonder-
of us could like bullshit the other one long enough.
Yeah, like how long we could go before the other one realized you didn't watch this, did you?
It's like what I did. Like, do you think ninth grade Jeff fucking read Great Expectations? Fuck no, I read the Cliff Notes for that shit and bullshitted my way along all the us. But so the gist of this movie is 1995 by Tony Scott, and the gist of this is Denzel Washington is an executive officer on the USS Alabama?
Yes.
I believe. Yeah, yes, the USS Alabama. It is a naval submarine that is going to an active combat situation to where like a group of like terrorists, pretty much like super nationalists, have like taken control of like this like nuclear missile barrage area, right? Where it's like they pretty much have access to, like, once they crack the codes, they can nuke America if they want to. And their orders are that, like, if they get word that, like, we're about to get nuked, we're gonna nuke them first. And they are in a situation to where they have gotten orders to strike because these nuclear codes have been cracked. Because of a conflict they have with another submarine, though, a follow-up message that they get is cut off halfway through. So at that point, they have standing orders to fire, but they did get follow-up orders that they weren't able to verify. Gene Hackman, who is it Ramsey? Yeah, so he's the captain. And then Hunter is Denzel. He's the executive officer. He's, just recently been brought on board the ship because he is replacing a guy who had appendicitis, who was like the long-running XO of Ramsey, I believe.
Now, that's important.
Yes.
Very important, because that literally changed world events, this guy having appendicitis.
Right. So the gist of this entire movie is that, like, Denzel is this hotshot executive officer, but he's never been a captain. But he is like one of the most like brilliant upstarts they've ever had in the Navy, essentially. Like, he's the top recommendation in this like super critical situation. So that Denzel's background is incredibly legit,
which is Gene Hackman's issue with him, is that he's this incredible upstart.
He's this hotshot who is like he like Denzel is the type to where he is super by the book, and Ramsey, Gene Hackman, is the type to where he's done all this by experience, and people in that situation naturally value experience over being knowledgeable of like the books. And because of the situation, Denzel wants them to wait until they can fix their communications array to where they can confirm a variety of different things. Like, first of all, if they're being called off.
Yeah.
He also mentions, what if the target has moved? Like what he has various things. He also mentions about how they have a redundancy in place to where there are other subs in place that can, they're not the only option for them to retaliate.
Right. They
have redundancies. And Ramsey fights this back with, like, you're assuming we have redundancies. What if those subs, like, they've just been in an active conflict, and his point is like, what if we don't have that? What if the other subs have been taken out? And
which
it's
are
interesting.
They're all good points from. There's a lot of good points on both sides, Jeff.
There really is.
One of them's even wearing a red hat, by the way. I just want to point out.
And you're programmed to, like, because of the way that the movie is like following Denzel at the beginning, you're programmed to like want to root for Hunter, but like Gene Hackman is making good points, because those things that have made Denzel's character so knowledgeable, like, stuff becomes by the book, typically because someone implemented it in the field.
Right.
Like, how many, like, one thing I think of is like, have you ever watched Band of Brothers?
No.
Band of Brothers, one of the earlier episodes, is actually about a small scale fight, but it's like the main plot of one of the episodes, because it actually had implemented maneuvers by this like little battalion that are still taught by military bases to this very day. This very specific tactic that's used. So it's like you agree with Hunter in that, yeah, like, what if they've called off this strike, we can potentially accidentally start World War III when we have orders potentially saying otherwise.
Right.
But
which, by the way, is the entire plot of Dr. Strangelove. I just want to throw that out there, since you said you'd never seen it, and I want to have it on the show sometime.
Yeah.
That is the entire plot. that there's
Mhm.
one rogue military element trying to fire the missile that will start World War III, and it's them trying to stop him.
Mm.
Yeah, but it's Peter Sellers, so it's a good time.
Of course.
Peter
I
Sellers
love
is
that
like
dude.
4 characters in that movie.
I love Peter Sellers.
Oh, it's so good.
I it's like shameful I haven't seen that movie.
Dude, Slim
It's one of
Pickens in
those.
that movie is kind of my favorite part of the movie.
Yeah, you gotta pick it at some point. So I have an excuse to finally check it out because it's one of those. It's been on my like permanent short list to check out. Just one of those that like skates on by you. But yeah, I love that dichotomy between the two of them to where I love movies to where it's not cut and dry. Uh, like the whole fucking movie boils down to like which side of the coin do you fall on between this philosophical debate.
And what's
'Cause,
interesting is I'd be interested to know how your personal politics influence which one, because they're both kind of protagonist and antagonist at the same time.
mhm.
Because like we said, they're both making extremely good points. They both could be right and they both could be wrong for whatever reason. For all they know, they're the last Americans left, right? Like they just don't know.
Yeah.
And because of your and my political leanings, we're leaning more towards Denzel. We want him to be right. We're rooting for him. But like, depending on your political leanings, I wonder if people watch this and believe Gene Hackman is in the right. Like, it would be an interesting study to do, I think.
Yeah. There's been like a lot of like interesting like this movie to me has some of the more like interesting kind of deep dives if you follow people's discussions on Reddit. Because there's been some like kind of ongoing threads throughout the years of where people kind of like fall on this situation because you're watching the movie and I like too that both both Hunter and Ramsey are so devoted to their beliefs, but at the same time, because and it's partially just because of their acting, they always have this kind of like hint, like they're 98% certain, but there's that little thing that's also in the back of their mind, like what if I'm wrong?
And
Like
then,
just this, yeah, like this just a simple fact towards the end, like where Ramsey gets the upper hand and technically can do it, but because Hunter has put forth this whole fucking plot to be able to get the communications guy to have a chance at fixing the thing. He's like, you have 3 minutes. So it's like even he spent the entire movie, Ramsey has, dead set on we're gonna fucking send the nukes because we got orders.
right.
And even when he gets the upper hand and he has the opportunity to go push the fucking button, he won't do it because he will give him 3 minutes and a chance to check the communications device. You know?
Right. Because in reality, no one on that sub, including Gene Hackman's character, wants to push that button. Because the thing is that I found myself forgetting about halfway through and had to remind myself, these guys are on the same team and they're both technically the heroes here, right? America is facing a nuclear threat from these Russian rioters that are coming up and they've taken over a missile base. So America is the one being threatened. They are the Navy. They're a nuclear armed submarine and they're there to defend us. They're on the same team. They're both technically the good guys.
Mhm.
It's like watching Captain America and Tony Stark slug it out with each other, you know?
Yeah, and how cool is it too? I to make the movie feel more claustrophobic, once they're on the ship, we don't leave the ship while the conflict is going on. Like they don't
Yeah.
cut to like boots on the ground in Russia, You get as much outside information as they do after their communications array has been destroyed. Like the entire movie, like you're just as in the dark as they are.
And they're being
And
pursued.
yeah, and
Which, by the way, the movie might I don't remember if the movie did a good job of this part or not. But in the actual real life event that kind of sparked this, that this is based on, that sub was pursued for 4 hours, Jeff.
crazy.
For 4 hours. There's another vessel out there that has you in their sights. You don't know where they are or what's going on. You don't know if you're the last line of defense. Like, imagine what that does, right? And it's like, also, Captain Ramsey, he's not acting as professional or whatever as he probably should be, but the entire sub is under so much pressure because nobody wants this. Nobody wants to do this. And it doesn't matter who does it. Captain Ramsey gives the order. It's Captain Ramsey that did it, right? Like, that is all falling on him. That is in his mind as
Yeah.
this is all happening. So it's fairly easy at the beginning to be like, well, he's just a dick. Well, yes, he is. He's not handling it well. I don't know how well I would handle that either.
Yeah, it's like the Lebowski quote, you're not wrong, Walter, you're just an asshole. You know?
Yeah. Like, he's been given one of the worst jobs anyone can give someone. Nuclear holocaust, here's the key. Take your boat out here and start it. Or end it, depending on how you look at it.
It's also just interesting to think about too. So it's like we were describing how impossibly intense that situation of being targeted for 4 hours like that would be. Now extrapolate that as you are the person who has been a captain in the Navy for 30 years. You've been doing this for 30 years. Think of like the toll that can take on your psyche. Like, you're no longer able to fucking function as a normal human being at that point because you've been submerged in a fucking submarine. And it's like, yeah, you have contact with other people down there, but it's not, it's not the same thing as like hanging out with a buddy at the bar. Like, it's constantly just this impossible situation. And it's like every day is just something crazy.
Being in a submarine messes with you.
It's like the equivalent of, it's almost like the equivalent of like being like on like a space station, essentially.
Yeah, or like The Descent, basically, too. Like just being stuck down in a cave down in the bowels of the earth somewhere. Because when I went to in Louisiana, there's a preserved submarine you can go to, and then I wrote a paper on World War II in one of my history classes in college, and the psychological effects of being in a submarine, even in peacetime, is devastating.
Yeah.
Not only is this potentially wartime, this is like going to be the war to end every war ever if we go to war, right? And then they got the orders. They got the orders to fire. And knowing that this is happening, imagine what the toll that takes. Like, nobody wants this. Like, I know I keep saying that, but like, nobody on either side wants this. Like, Russia doesn't want this either. Anything you read about the Cold War, they were just as afraid of us as we were of them.
Because everybody, it's a war where nobody can win and everybody can lose.
Yeah,
everybody can lose.
So, like, this is a thing that nobody wants. And remember, the movie makes it clear that this isn't really the Russian government. These are rebels. Russia is going into civil war in this movie. So they're kind of skirting around the whole America versus Russia thing plot-wise, because this isn't Russia doing this. These terrorists have taken over this missile compound.
Yeah, it's like domestic terrorism pretty much over there, yeah.
Yeah, so they kind of skirt that. But when this type stuff was happening in real life, and like the Cuban Missile Crisis and stuff, everybody had their finger on the trigger, and nobody wanted to take the safety off, So it's crazy that everything's happening. Like I said, the most terrifying thing to me is that this was based on a similar incident that happened on a Russian submarine. Did you see that?
I know a little bit about it. I haven't never done like I think when I originally saw this, I kind of did a bit of a deep dive into more of the background of it, but go ahead and talk about it to refresh my memory, because I don't remember much of it.
It is Soviet submarine B-59, which sounds like a transformer to me. B-59 had not been in this is from Wikipedia. B-59 had not been in contact with Moscow for several days. This is during the Cuban Missile Crisis. The submarine's crew had been picking up U.S. civilian radio broadcasts, but once they began attempting to hide from pursuers, the vessel had to run deep had to run too deep to monitor radio traffic, and those on board did not know whether or not they were at war. It says that they had 9 extra people on board. I don't think that they included that in the movie. I'm trying to see. It goes from 9 people on board to all of a sudden jumping to they now only have emergency lighting and power, but they don't talk about why. So it's the interior is overcrowded. They have too many people on board. Emergency lighting, so it's dark. Since they don't have power, it's unbearably hot, and they're running short on drinking water and breathable air. 70 people was the crew, and they're all suffering from lack of ventilation and CO2 poisoning, diesel fumes, and some people were collapsing from heat stroke. So yeah, they were under attack for 4 hours. So imagine those conditions, and these people don't know if they're at war or not. I'm trying to get to the part down here where it says, I've lost it. I had it in here where they were talking about like the crew. Boats were dropping grenades on them and depth charges. Chief of staff to avoid submarine detention. So only these 3 people on board were authorized to launch the nuclear weapon if they all agreed to it. B-59 was the only sub in the flotilla that required authorization of 3 officers in order to fire, quote unquote, the special weapon. The other subs only required that the captain and political officer approve the launch. Yeah, those conditions are horrific.
Yeah, I don't think I could ever willingly go into like what is it they say at the beginning? Like they're expecting to be submerged for 65 days or something like that. It's like 2 months underwater in a fucking submarine, dude.
So it's
and like you're constantly like moving too. So like I know you'd eventually get used to it, but I imagine if you weren't like just constantly being sick because you get like motion sickness because you're moving so slow, but you're constantly in motion, you know, shit like that. You don't really think about it. It's like
Arkhipov, or however you say that. Of the 3, Arkhipov alone opposed the launch, and he persuaded the captain to surface and await orders from Moscow. The air conditioning completely failed, and the batteries ran dry. Late in the evening of October 27th, B-59 had to surface, and it surfaced amid U.S. warships that were pursuing it and were immediately subjected to intense harassment with searchlights and what appeared to be mock attacks from planes and helicopters from the Randolph.
Jesus.
The submarine made...
What year was it that this happened?
This is during the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Like late 60s?
Something like that, yeah. 1962, so early 60s.
Oh, okay, early 60s.
The submarine made contact with USS destroyer Connie, and after discussions with the ship, B-59 was ordered by the Russian fleet to set course back to Soviet Union.
Isn't that nuts? It's like
so, like this exact thing basically is what the movie is based on, like almost entirely. We were that close. Like it came down to 3 guys had to agree. Other ships, it was just the captain. This ship, it was 3 guys, and 1 guy was saying no, and because they didn't know if they were at war or not already, and he wanted to surface and await orders from Moscow, and it turns out we were not at war. We were that fucking close.
Yeah, it's fucking nuts to think about.
Anyway, like that's the history lesson, folks.
Yeah, I find this movie fascinating to think about, and you can also just kind of enjoy it at face value because I think it, like, just technically speaking, I think it's this is like a really difficult movie to make, I think, because so much of it is kind of like the problem that you'd have with directing Fury. It's like, how many possible camera angles can I create from the inside of this thing, you know?
Yeah, where, and like you know what you're talking about, watching it at surface value. what, Denzel Washington and Gene Hackman is not going to be a good time? Like,
Dude,
two of the greatest actors.
their scenes together, especially like some like it's
you
fun
can
to
cut
watch.
that air with a knife.
It's fun to watch them at the ending of the movie when they're full blown, at odds against each other. My favorite scenes are like the ones throughout the movie in the first half, to where there's tension between them, but they haven't had the situation happen yet, to where it's just kind of like their philosophies against each other.
One of my
how good is that scene when they're just like eating dinner and chatting about like,
yeah,
I love that scene so much. Like every line is perfect.
and all of them have weight. Like the dialogue feels so heavy because you can tell where this is going based just on their philosophies at command. One of my favorite moments in the entire movie is when Ramsey's full on snapped and he punches Denzel Washington, and Denzel Washington responds by showing him the thing he wants and just putting it around his neck and standing there. And Gene Hackman hits him again, and he just keeps staring at Gene Hackman, waiting for the third hit, and the third hit like never comes.
Yeah.
From what you've been seeing, Denzel Washington can fold Gene Hackman like laundry.
Oh yeah.
Man, he just stands there and stares him down.
It's so awesome.
It's intense too. Like the entire crew is watching it.
Yeah.
Have you ever been on a submarine?
I have not.
Like I said, there's that one down in Louisiana, I believe it is. I've been there. And it's a preserved submarine. I don't remember any details about it. I don't remember like what years it was in service or anything. It seems pretty ginormous from the outside. And then you go in it, like it's hell, dude, inside that thing. Like you're bending down to walk most of the time and stuff like that. Like it's crazy. This is a bigger submarine than that one. I'm sure because of the ordnance and stuff that it's carrying and the amount of missiles it's got. It has to be far bigger than the one that I walked around inside of. But it was a museum piece, and it was not a fun time walking around this thing.
I think I might have gone to the one in Muskogee. I think in Muskogee they have like a
Did it really?
Yeah, so Muskogee War Memorial Park, home of the USS Batfish. I think I've been to this one. I don't know if I've actually been inside of it though.
The mighty Batfish.
I feel like I've been to here though, because I remember going to one in Oklahoma. I just can't remember which one. I think this is probably it. But I don't know if I've been inside one. Yeah, I can't imagine fucking living in one of these things.
Or dying in it. Like, they lose power and they're sinking. They go to crush depth.
Yep.
Which
you're just fucked.
Which, as intense as that part is in the movie, I did laugh out loud because Futurama has ruined that for me. Because in that episode, they go to the ocean bottom. Then they talk about like how much pressure is on the hull. And the professor's like, my God, that's like how many thousands of atmospheres of pressure. And Leela's like, how many atmospheres can the ship take? And he's like, well, it's a spaceship, so one. Like, and that's all I could think about when they're in the crush depth scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I was laughing at that. It was not the movie's fault. It was Futurama's.
Fucking Futurama.
Dude, Futurama's so good.
I love Futurama so much.
My house, it burned down. How could this happen? That's a very good question. Oh, that's where I left my cigar. That raises further questions.
I think another scene that is like brilliantly constructed that kind of like further amplifies the like they're both wrong, they're both right, they're both kind of a dick. Is when they have the fire happen.
Yes.
Like
I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah. So it's like the first thing that really, like, these guys already fucking hate each other obviously, but what really puts them like at each other's throats for the first time is there has been a fire outbreak in the kitchen, and Denzel is on hand putting out this fucking fire, and they eventually have to like rush through the fucking fire to activate the like the is like CO2 to put out the fires, I think. It's like, and fucking Gene Hackman starts up a drill
Yep.
during it, but at the same time,
A guy
he's not
dies.
wrong. At the same time, he's not wrong, because the best time to drill is when everyone is already frazzled and not able to, you know, react without, you know, like it's like the worst possible situation isn't gonna wait for a convenient time.
Right.
And they are in one of the most critical situations in the history of our fucking species. So it's like him wanting them to be able to react under any situation, regardless of the suspense of it, is not, he's not wrong. He's just an asshole, you know. But his last thing that he says before Hunter leaves his like personal bunk, where he tells him it wasn't the fire that killed him, it was his 300 pounds.
Yeah.
You're just like, fuck, dude. That's fucking cold.
That's fucking awful.
The dude just died like an hour before, and he says that. It's fucking brutal, dude.
Yeah. I was just like, oh my God. What shocked me, and maybe if I watched it again, I would see it more clearly throughout the whole movie. Gene Hackman at the end becomes racist all of a sudden. Like, everything was a philosophical difference, it felt like, until the end when he was talking about these amazing horses and how they're all white.
That scene and that conversation has sparked so many debates
About whether it's because he's racist the entire time.
So there are so many avenues to that, because like,
or is he just out of ammunition at this point?
So that's the thing. I think that scene is like, a lot of people really dislike it because they think it comes out of nowhere.
They think it undercuts the movie, probably.
They think that, yeah, some people's opinion on it is that it undercuts the movie because okay, Ramsey can obviously, like, you can definitely assume that the old white dude who's, you know, the captain of the USS Alabama for 30 years, probably a racist.
Probably.
But
it's the red hat.
Yeah, exactly. Make the Alabama great again. But that conversation, I think, is like pretty brilliant, because you don't like, you can obviously take it as him just being outright racist, but when you think about it, by the way, like, the way Hunter reacts to it, like the way that he's still able to have a conversation with him afterwards, is, I think he realized, to my interpretation of it is, this is Ramsey kind of like reevaluating their entire situation and their entire relationship together, and boiling it down to like, Hunter has been reacting by the book and with such conviction because of the situation and his beliefs, like the way he believes in his own philosophy, as far as like, we cannot start World War III without confirming.
Right.
And by him bringing up this thing with the horses, this is like an attack potentially on him personally, not on his beliefs as a member of the Navy. So I kind of fall in line with the thinking of, Ramsey's probably a little bit racist, but I don't think his entire...
You don't think he's explicitly racist? You think it comes through in assumptions that he's made throughout his life?
Yeah, I don't think he is a blue check mark on Twitter racist. I don't think I don't think he's explicit in it.
Oh wow, that was good.
I think this is him, because it all falls back to the way that they were talking to one another in their first scene at dinner, where they're just chatting about like their own personal philosophies on war and the way history develops. And Ramsey's whole thing about talking about how Hunter has chosen his words very carefully. Like, because Ramsey is a very, very like stuck up hard ass, right? But you can tell there's like he's not an idiot. It's
Right.
not one of those things to where I think this is him taking the situation, kind of like poking the bear, and kind of like he's testing his character to see how he would react in this thing that like the way that like Hunter reacts to it is like out of nowhere to him too. Like he's shocked by it. Like to me, this is him testing Denzel's character. And it's not just him explicitly being a racist piece of shit. And a lot of people take it as him just explicitly being a racist piece of shit. And like technically, like you can take it that way, but I think there's more to it because of how nuanced like their entire dynamic is together.
So your argument is basically he lost control when he was hitting Denzel Washington, and he's trying to provoke a reaction from Denzel Washington similarly. Because right now Denzel Washington has the moral high ground.
Yeah. I think
you think it's burning him up that he lost his composure and Denzel never did.
Yeah. And I think this is like the final, because at the very ending of the movie, he recommends for Hunter to be a captain.
Yes.
And I think Hunter being so fucking calm and collected to where he can take that response the way that he does, like he's shocked at first, and he's like appalled by it at first, but then he like starts to think about it. Like I think a lot of it is in like the minutia of like their acting, because to me Hunter doesn't take it as explicitly racist, because he wouldn't be able to have as friendly a conversation as they do at the very ending of the movie after he's resigned and recommended for Hunter to be a captain. Like they're in that moment, like they're able to like basically share a joke with one another. If Ramsey is just being explicitly racist in that moment, he wouldn't be able to ever look him in the eye again. Like he would he would basically like write him off, like the way like when Denzel walks up to Aragorn and
Speaking
he's
of,
like, "We're fucking done."
Yeah.
To me, if his character took that scene as being explicitly racist, that's the reaction he would have with Ramsey, and he wouldn't even be able to have this conversation with him again. I think he knows there's more to it, and that's kind of like the way I take it. But what's kind of like your read on it?
I wasn't really sure what to make of it because it caught me so off guard because this movie hadn't been about that. And then
it's just at the very most, it's like you can read into it as a subtext of like I was saying, like a probability between the two people, like he's probably kind of a racist at the very least.
He's
but
probably inherently to some degree racist, right? But
yeah, it's just not on Front Street. Yeah,
but I was still taking it as the dueling philosophies still, because I don't have the whole quote in front of me, but like it's a matter of voltage. Like, sticking a cattle prod up their ass, you can get them to do anything. It's a matter of voltage. That's not a positive thing. If you think about it, like even his own example is flawed. He's talking about how amazing the horses are. All of them are white, and you can get them to do anything. If you stick a cattle prod up their ass, it's just a matter of voltage. That is a profoundly negative thing. Like that is like, as long as you force them to do something, they can do something remarkable. Like, I don't know. The whole philosophy is messed up still. And all Denzel has to say about it is, when they're born, they're black. Like, and I was just like trying to figure out the philosophy behind both of them in that scenario, because that doesn't make it better, dude. Like, you're pointing out that he doesn't know what he's talking about and there's more to it. I get that. That doesn't, you're still saying they start out black and it's still a matter of voltage. Like, I don't understand what you guys are saying to each other. Like, it makes no sense. It came so out of left field. Like, obviously I caught the racist remark. I caught the racism in it. But I still didn't feel like it was about the racism. I felt like there was something else being said.
There's something else to it.
It's still a mixed metaphor, right? It's still messed up. Even just at its base. So yeah, I don't know. I ended up just kind of disregarding it and moving on with the movie because I was like, I can't figure you out, movie. But yeah, should we get into it? You wanna talk about the cast?
Yeah.
Stop! Yeah. Shut up, Siri.
I was gonna I was gonna segues earlier into our typical format, but fuck it, we had like a 20-minute book report, so like we're just kind of like doing whatever the hell we feel like today.
I just was sitting there, and I was like, oh shit, we haven't even technically started this thing off. So I was like, let's just get into it. Let's just get started.
Yeah, like I mean,
an hour.
It's more important to talk about like what we've been discussing is the entire backbone of the movie. Then yeah, like the technical stuff we're gonna get into is also super cool, and this movie was nominated for a few Oscars for like its technical work, and like we'll get to that. But this was directed by Tony Scott, who has we talked about the end of the last episode. I was so sad when he committed suicide because I've always really liked him. Obviously, I love Crimson Tide, but I think I showed you Man on Fire with that he also did with Denzel, and that's a hell of a movie. We talked about before, like True Romance. He had like a crazy run in the 90s where it was like, what was it, like Crimson Tide, True Romance, and like Last Boy Scout over the course of a couple of years. Just some like real
Last Boy Scout, so good.
We also talked about like you and I both really liked Unstoppable. Like a lot of people shit on Unstoppable. I like that movie.
Yeah, I like that movie.
Also Denzel.
Also based on a thing that happened. But if you stop and think about a runaway train, it's fucking terrifying.
Yeah, I know. Like obviously they're having to extrapolate the potential like intensity of that situation to make it work as a movie. But you know what? That's what every fucking movie does.
That's the medium.
Yeah,
it's not a documentary. It's supposed to be entertainment.
Yeah.
If you pick up a few facts along the way, great. But the most terrifying thing about this movie was learning it was based on a thing that actually happened.
Exactly.
It doesn't say anywhere. It doesn't acknowledge anywhere that this is based on a true story or anything. It completely presents itself as a total work of fiction. But the moment you do research into it, you find out, oh no, this happened on a Russian submarine, not an American one.
Mm-hmm. The story was created by Michael Schiffer and Richard P. Hendrick, where Schiffer created the screenplay for this. This movie also famously had uncredited rewrites in certain scenes by Quentin Tarantino. And you can absolutely tell that the Silver Surfer and Star Trek quotes were all attributed by Mr. Tarantino. I fucking love how once you know Tarantino had a hand in this,
you can tell.
Like, you can tell within a fucking nanosecond, your brain can figure out which scenes are from him. But he also contributed some of the like intense, because that's like Tarantino's thing. How like some of Tarantino's most intense scenes are just two people talking, so you can tell like he was a good person to get for some of their back and forth. Like I can almost guarantee you, at least half of that dinner scene was written by Tarantino, because who else puts half their fucking scenes of dialogue at a fucking cafeteria, like something like that,
with a briefcase that glows gold when you open it.
Fucking Tarantino, it's like all the time people talking around at like a dinner table, and that's one of his favorite tropes, like a setting.
I was shocked to find out that he contributed to this, because I didn't hear a single N-word and I didn't see anyone's feet. I was absolutely shocked he contributed to this.
Man. This was like this was like the year after Pulp Fiction, so it's really early on in his career. We've talked at length about Denzel and Gene Hackman. This movie
Powerhouse, each one of them.
I love them so much. This movie has several supporting actors that you'll pick up on. Viggo Mortensen plays Webbs.
Aragorn
himself. Dude, how weird is it seeing him with like that buzzed haircut? like where there's like the I don't know what you call it, but like the flat buzz on top. It's so weird. It's so weird seeing him like that because my brain rejects all Viggo Mortensen that is not Aragorn.
And him talking with an American accent too.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't look up anything about this movie. I just went into it. So in the opening credits, as it's scrolling by, I was like, "What? Like it just kept getting crazier." So the
James
first
Gandolfini.
yeah, the first time, boy, he's a cock in this.
James Gandolfini is fucking despicable in this movie.
He's so good at being despicable too.
Yeah,
and by all accounts, he was not. But he's absolutely despicable in like The Sopranos and other movies I've seen him in. He's so good at being so awful. His facial expressions are intense. He's really good at facial expressions.
He is one of those people where it's like when he's at his worst, like he becomes somehow even more magnetic and like you can't look away from it. He has a fucking screen presence to him in this. Like some of the expressions he has, like you said, like there he is like a fucking killer instinct,
he's fucking
like written
feral
all over his face. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, George Dzunda, the cop, the chief of the boat.
I think he's a super cool supporting character.
He's one of my top favorite characters in the whole thing.
I love his character arc in the movie. Because
I disagree with you, but the captain's out of line.
Yeah, I think he is a great character, and his arc is really cool because he's playing the character Cobb to where he has so much like background, like personal background with Ramsey that he's basically like his bro, you know, like he's his right hand man essentially. But because
he's chief of the boat, that's what Cobb stands for.
Yeah, he's not willing to follow Ramsey down the rabbit hole when he goes off book too much, though. So he's like he's like old school, like He's like the
caught between the two.
Yeah, he's like the perfect middle ground between the two, to where like he has this personal background. He respects Ramsey, but he's not devoted enough to follow him down the rabbit hole of being a shithead. Like when he is trying to like first basically tell him to like, I'm the captain. You're gonna agree with me to fire off the nuke because you're my XO and I'm the captain. And then he's like, that's not the fucking rule. You know, that's not the way this works.
And he fundamentally disagrees with Denzel Washington, but he respects his authority also because that's the way it works.
He respects the chain of command over any person. And that's kind of like his philosophy in the whole thing.
Because otherwise, what is the point of the chain of command?
Right. We have Danny Nucci, who plays Danny Ravetti. What the fuck have I seen Danny Nucci in? Because I know him from something else in this.
I swear to God, I scrolled through his stuff, and his IMDb photo looks very different. He's in Titanic. He's the friend, I think. Probably that. I've seen Eraser.
I'm okay. I don't know if you've been having the same thing. I have been trying to think of the specific other role that my brain latches onto when I think of him, but I can't pinpoint what it is.
I think it's the friend in Titanic.
You think it's that? But I haven't seen Titanic in like 30 years. I never really liked it, so I maybe I feel like there's something. Maybe The Rock. I don't fucking know.
I still need to see that.
Dude, you're gonna love The Rock. The Rock's awesome.
Yeah, like. The thing is, I have seen a ton of stuff that he has been in.
Maybe it's just he's been in so many things.
You're just used to looking at him.
My brain has just combined all of his fucking characters.
I gotta say, Salt and Pepper with the beard, he looks pretty good these days.
Yeah, he's
that IMDb photo is pretty sharp.
Yeah, he's distinguished as fuck.
He looks kind of like Clooney in that photo.
Yeah, for sure. Did you trip out seeing Steve Zahn as one of the supporting characters?
So his name pops up, and I was like, I beg your fucking pardon? And then it took me a while to notice him because he's a baby in this movie.
Yeah.
And
oh shit, he was probably in like his early 20s. Like,
holy shit, does he take it to the face?
Dude, That scene's fucking hard to watch.
That scene is rough. Everything about it.
That scene is fucking devastating. So he is he's shown throughout the movie as one of the crewmen who's kind of like a maintenance guy almost.
Engineer maybe?
Yeah, like an engineer maintenance kind of guy. He is one of the 3 people that is trying to help with the huge hull leak that is gonna kill everybody on the ship if they can't stop it. Eventually, what has to happen is because of the way that the ship is descending, and because of how much water is in the room, and because of the angle of their descent, they're not able to get these 3 guys out. So while Hunter is in charge, after he's assigned Ramsey to his quarters, he has to seal seal off their little area.
And this is after Ramsey told him he couldn't make the hard decisions.
Yeah, exactly.
This is right after Captain America told him that he couldn't lay down on the wire and let the other man climb over him.
Yeah, so Hunter has to sacrifice these 3 guys, unfortunately, to have a shot.
How much does this movie influence the relationship between Captain America and Iron Man, I wonder?
Right.
There's so many parallels to the characters.
But it's not bad enough that Steve Zahn, that William Barnes, his character, is gonna fucking drown. But a fucking giant piece of the hull, because of the pressure, shoots off while he's like working on that side of the room with a wrench, and it just hits him directly in the face. And dude, I swear, like, it's fucking hard to watch. And I've seen 1,000 horror movies. Like, it's fucking hard to watch. Like, the way that it's
hard to watch.
Yeah, that's one of those.
And
it activates every fucking mirror neuron in your body.
I don't know if you know this too, but that guy, if he had waited a second longer, was not getting that hatch closed. When the water starts coming up, can you resist the movement of water, Jeff, at all? Like, if you wait too long,
it's over.
The water is forcing its way in through that hatch. You will never, ever be able to close that hatch because it's coming in at hundreds or thousands of pressure per square inch. You can't push against that.
At that point, they're what, like 1,800 meters below?
Yeah.
Too? Like that
1,800 feet, I think.
That amount of pressure is fucking crazy.
Yeah. So, I was seriously doubting if he was even going to be able to close the hatch and if they weren't going to have to do something else because, and he barely gets it, but it's fighting him the whole way. But he basically started to wait too long. Like, he was right at the last vestiges of being able to close that hatch.
Yeah, it's a fucking devastating scene, and it's devastating to watch like Hunter have to make that call too. You know, because this is like his first time being a captain, and like within hours you have to sacrifice 3 of your crew. Like, that's pretty intense.
And
that'd be intense for everybody, but for your first day is that job, you know, like it's
he reacts to it too.
Yeah,
like he kind of like takes a step backwards after they say the hatch is closed.
And as a person, like Hunter is also a hard ass, but he's shown because like with his conversations with Ramsey, it's like, you know, like morale's down. Like, he is concerned about the morale.
Is he a hard ass though? He witnesses a fight in the galley and lets both the guys off the hook. And they're fighting over whose Silver Surfer is better in the comics. That's what they're fighting about.
So he is like because of how like devoted he is to his actions, I think he is a hard ass. And
you just don't think he's unreasonable.
Well, he like, because when he first is assuming command of the ship after they take Ramsey out of the equation for the first time, he's a hard ass the way he is talking to everyone else in the room. Like, if you have any issues with what just happened, you know, you can see yourself out. Like, he is a hard ass.
Well,
he's just also
at that point he's also kind of made himself the bad guy. He's painted a target on his back.
Yeah.
So at that point things change, but before that point in the movie, like, he just witnessed 2 guys have a fist fight over nothing, and he only threatens to write up the other guy if it happens again.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, you take into account the movie as a whole. Like, Hunter is someone who is a hard ass, and
I think he becomes one because he has to at that point. I think he's forced to.
Yeah, I'm just saying he is someone who has the capacity to stare down fucking Gene Hackman in the face as he's punching him in the face repeatedly and stand his ground. Like, he is.
No, that's not hard ass. That's badass.
Well, like, I'm just saying, like he has these
That
these
sigh.
like he has these hard-nosed elements to his character, but he also
Not
has
anymore. Gene Hackman took care of that.
he has a lot of empathy for the crew. So it's especially difficult for him in that moment because like he's legitimately concerned about like the mental mindset of like everyone around him.
Do you agree you could probably break it down to Gene Hackman is protecting the mission and Denzel Washington's protecting the crew? Because there's a lot of that going on too.
Yeah, and like Ramsey,
at least at the beginning before the double mutiny.
Ramsey also is just looking because Ramsey has been
he's been doing this job for too long as his problem.
He's been doing the job for so long that like he looks at everyone around him as like X's and O's on like a fucking like football playbook, you know? Like,
yeah.
They're no longer people to him. They're just people who work for him. So I think they're really hammering that home as far as like Denzel still views them as people that they're humans in an impossible situation. Ramsey views them as people that need to listen to him and shut the fuck up. You know?
Can we talk about the Jack Russell Terrier's bark? The first time I heard that Jack Russell bark, I was like, "What the fuck is that?" Like I thought, like all of a sudden there was demons in the movie.
Dude, it sounds evil.
Like, what is that? That's not what a Jack Russell sounds like. What the fuck is that? At first, I wasn't even sure the dog barked. And then later, when they show him barking again and again at the guys pushed into the captain's room, which, by the way, the Ron and Jeff, I think, were outside the captain's room like, what are we doing? I don't know about you, but I shit my pants. Like, that's what I'm doing. Like, that's the Ron and Jeff of the movie.
Pretty much.
But I was just like, this fucking demon dog. And also, counter philosophies. Jack Russell Terrier's smartest dog on the planet. I have heard two different things that both contradict that. One of them is they're so stupid that they're even hard to train. And another one I've heard is they are smart and they are trainable, but they're ADHD, basically. So it makes them incredibly difficult to train. Like they're smart, but their attention is just all over the place. And it makes them really hard to train. And they're usually like on those rosters of smartest dogs or whatever, fairly low on the list because of ADHD reasons, apparently. But fucking movie, dude.
I have no answer for you though, because it does sound like a fuck, dude. In the scene,
it sounds like a human mimicking a dog bark into a microphone.
When the two guys get locked into Ramsey's quarters with the dog, and the dog starts like jumping at their leg and barking, like it sounds like it's gonna devour their souls.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like a fucking dog from Dark Souls or something. Like it's gonna breathe fire here in a minute.
Yeah.
I was just like, what the fuck is that dog?
My only explanation for it is because of if they tried to record just the ambient sound of that dog barking in that small of a submarine style room, it would have been excruciating for like the mix. So I'm assuming it's all just done in post, but yeah, it is amplified and in a very bizarre way.
It sounds like one of the key grips put in front of a microphone. Like, okay, do your best impression of a dog barking. Like it doesn't sound. They didn't go out and get Frank Welker to do this.
It sounds like Stitch from Lilo and Stitch pretending to be a dog.
That's pretty close. That's pretty close.
Pretty much.
Maybe send me an angel. That's the best scene in the whole movie. It just cuts to him just laughing maniacally.
I fucking love Lilo and Stitch.
Movie's too good.
I think we talked about it in the green room, but to get ready for the live action movie, Aurora and I watched the original movie, the sequel movie, and are now watching the TV show. And it's one of those things where it's like the show is like kind of dumb at times, but I will watch Stitch do fucking anything. So it's like, yes, I will sign. Yes, please, as many episodes as you want, I will watch every one.
Did you notice that they changed on Disney Plus? And we'll probably talk more about this. Because I plan to do Lilo and Stitch on the show at some point because I love that movie.
Yeah. I love Lilo and
Did
Stitch.
You notice on the Disney Plus version they changed? It's not the dryer that Lilo hides in.
It's a pizza box because they didn't want kids hiding in their fucking washers and dryers and die.
Yeah. Yeah, they changed it. It looks so fucking weird.
You know what's funny is I think later on in the movie they go back there and it's like a dryer again, and it's just like
it's just that one scene.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah, dude, this the fucking movie.
So another star of the movie is Hans Zimmer's score.
I
Really
found out it was Hans Zimmer at the end, and I honestly don't remember there being any music in the movie.
That's the thing, is like he has it dialed up perfectly for how like tense the scenes need to be. So like a real like driving force of like when the movie goes like quiet, for instance, when they're being tracked by the other submarine, like there's just like no score at all. So like it's used like in the background to like ramp up and like ramp down like tension. So the next time you watch it, if you just kind of like pay attention to it, like it's expertly done by Hans Zimmer.
Also, of the submarine movies I've seen, this is the first one I've seen like psychological stress on the crew.
Right.
But the guy that freaks out at the sonar panel or whatever, and then just all the ambient sounds, especially when they lose the engine, then they lose the screw and they're sinking, and you just hear all the popping and the cracking and the stress on the metal just rippling throughout the inside of the sub, and everybody stops what they're doing and is looking around.
Yeah, it's really fucking well done. That was I think the assortment of Oscars that it was nominated for was like stuff like that. I'm pulling up the specifics right now. So it was nominated for best sound, best film editing, and best effects. I like a lot how they are using the cinematography of where they're framing the characters to like simulate movement of the ship.
Yes.
It's really well done. It's like, because you could go overboard with that and make it like cartoony. You know, you'd have it. You could go to the extent of like, have you ever seen like classic Star Trek with like Captain Kirk and Spock and shit, like where they're having to simulate like the ship getting hit, and it's like it becomes cartoonish because of how much they overdo it.
Does it become like Mythbusters pretending to fly a plane and they just like twist the camera and people leaning?
Exactly. Like it's very, very delicate. Like
it's played for comedy on Mythbusters, but yeah, I can understand.
If you see what I'm saying, like where it's like you're walking a fucking tightrope between it being intense and it being really, really fucking dumb. And I think they do it expertly here. Like when they're showing the momentum of the ship descending after it's lost propulsion is really good. Like you can tell that like the ship is on like an angle, and what's interesting is like it would be easy to frame that for a specific scene with a specific allotment of characters, but when you think of like the editing, how it cuts back and forth between like 4 different groups of people, and the momentum of the ship is consistent. Like there is a lot of attention to detail given to the editing, and like it earned all these fucking Oscar nominations because of that attention to detail. Because like when they're cutting back and forth between like the con with Denzel and him on the radio with the 3 people who are, you know, stuck in the with the hull breach, and it's cutting back and forth like the radio comms guy who's like trying to fix the radio. It's like every time it's cutting back and forth, you never lose sight of the momentum of the ship currently, and like that shit, like you'll notice it more when you watch it a second time and you're paying more attention to like the kind of like nuts and bolts of the movie as opposed to just being, you know, like sucked into the drama of it, you know? So like just technically speaking, like this movie is so fucking well put together.
Yeah, the amount of planning that goes into being able to cut between inside and outside shots is insane. One thing that like took me back and kind of made me laugh because I've experienced this feeling is you remember when the guy's working on the radio and you can see the signal oscillator sitting there and it's a flat line and the dude barely touches something and you see the sine wave come in and go away and he's like, no, do that again, reattach that lead, do it again. Like that was me and Mr. Poe in the IMAX projection booth trying to get the projection system running again so many times.
Love that.
It's just like, no, wait, what'd you do? Do it again.
Do it again.
I laughed
Man.
out loud at that because how many times, Jeff, have you been in the projection booth somewhere trying to get the movie running again, and then just whoa, wait, do that again?
Yeah, and it's like the intensity like we felt as projectionists trying to get the movie back on for like 300 people versus like the fate of the world is at stake. And you just think of how like you could feel kind of stressed out being us as idiots in a fucking Cinemark production booth.
Yeah.
Now amplify that by 10 million.
Amplify that by nuclear war.
Yeah,
Amplify that by Judgment Day.
Amplify that as this showing of Harry Potter isn't going to work versus the ending of the human race.
Oh, dude. I wish it was just Harry Potter. It was fucking Twilight was the worst one. One of the Twilight movies. Oh, I have war stories about that.
Mm-hmm.
But you want to talk about something fun?
What's that?
So, obviously, the Navy objected to elements of the script, particularly the mutiny. This, because of the mutiny scene, basically, the Navy refused to assist with the movie at all.
Cool.
So they had no submarine for the movie, and they had no aircraft carriers. Remember at the beginning, the CNN guy says he's on a French aircraft carrier? That was actually a French Navy carrier called the Foch, the Foch, F-O-C-H.
The Fook?
The what was supposed to be the Alabama that Captain Ramsey is standing in front of and he's addressing the crew is actually the USS Barbell. It is a retired submarine. It was supposed to be scrapped, so it didn't have a conning tower. That was all made out of plywood. The conning tower had already been removed. But get this. I'm going to read this verbatim from Wikipedia, okay? Because of the Navy's refusal to cooperate with the filming, the production company was unable to secure footage of a submarine submerging. After checking to make sure there was no law against filming naval vessels, the producers waited at the submarine base at Pearl Harbor until a submarine put to sea. After a submarine, coincidentally the real USS Alabama, left port,
awesome.
They pursued her in a boat and a helicopter, filming as they went. They continued to do so until she submerged, giving them the footage they needed to incorporate into the film.
That's awesome.
They filmed the real USS Alabama by chasing it fucking down. A military vehicle, a weapon of war. They got in a helicopter and fucking chased it.
I'm sure that they, the people on board loved that.
Oh, dude, I could just imagine being that pilot or being that boat driver and just being like, they're going to fucking shoot us.
They'd be every fucking right to shoot us down at that point. We're fucking following the Navy vessel. Like
it doesn't say here, but I'm sure that they like made it clear what they're doing and that there's no law against doing it, so they can't stop them.
I'd still be fucking nervous doing it though.
But yeah, could you imagine?
Yeah, fuck that, dude.
But yeah, the Navy didn't like the idea of a mutiny on board one of their ships, so they was just like not, and just decided to not cooperate with the movie.
And I like how you can tell that they didn't read the entirety of the script because it condones all of the negative decisions being made on the ship for the most part. Because it's like the fucking mutiny isn't from Hunter. The mutiny is from Ramsey refusing Hunter, who was following like actual protocol that Ramsey just broke. So it's like they're condoning the mutiny.
Yeah, the irony is the mutiny in the movie is from the
Ramsey.
captain. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
and his like cronies like Gandolfini.
Yeah. I don't
from Aragorn, who is no longer invited to birthday parties.
I was gonna say I don't think he's gonna be invited to any more parties. I was so disappointed when he didn't do it, but I was like, character redemption. The gun's to his head. He won't open the safe.
Yeah, he buys them just enough time because he
refuses to cooperate.
He refuses to
because he's in the Navy. There was a mutiny.
Yeah, there's like. It's like mutiny Inception. There's like 12 mutinies in the mutinies. But yeah, I'm super glad that you dug the movie as much as I do, because I think this movie is super underrated, both like technically speaking. Like I think the filmmaking itself by Tony Scott and their crew is really, really strong. Obviously the performances are incredible. This is one of those things where it's kind of like Jeff Crack in that like when you can make a scene where it's just two people talking and
you're riveted.
That is when you have expert acting and expert writing to me. And this movie has like 4 different moments of that where it's like just people fucking talking, and it's like you're on the edge of your seats. Like
there's guns, and the guns are pointed at people, but no one ever fires a shot.
Yeah,
you know. So yeah, like there's not a whole lot of action. There's just the one scene of action, and it is totally to establish Denzel Washington as captain.
It's so good.
I meant to bring this up when we were before we did the cast, and I forgot it. This has an 89% on Rotten Tomatoes and an 84% with the audience score. And then on Metacritic, it is 66 meta, which is green still, and a 7.7 out of 10 on users. So it's a fairly beloved movie by critics and audiences.
Yeah, it just goes under the radar, unfortunately.
Yeah,
it's
I
like,
never hear anyone talk about this movie. It never comes up. Nothing.
Yeah, I'm glad that you liked it though. I figured it'd be up your alley because a lot of like what we like I mentioned earlier, like so many of the things that you and I were talking about that we wished had been in Pandorum is the like the nuts and bolts of Crimson Tide, and I figured you would like it because we were so much on the same page in our analysis of that I'm glad that you liked it.
Yeah, no, it's really good. I'm really glad I saw. Denzel Washington's a big blind spot for me.
Oh yeah,
yeah. There's a lot of there's movies that I have seen I always really liked, and I like him in it. But I don't know. There's something about the way any trailer for any of his movies are put out. I'm just like, nah, I'm not interested in that. And then like you actually sit down and watch the movie. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about the trailers for movies he's in. I'm just always,
you don't know what it honestly. You don't know what it reminds me of. The same thing happens in a lot of like Will Smith trailers.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
Like back in like Will Smith's like prime, because it has like Will Smith or Denzel in it, and they're so beloved, and they're so iconic, and they're so good that like they feel like they can just phone it in. So I think a lot of the time you're not getting a good trailer because they're just like, well, it's got fucking Denzel in it.
Denzel Washington is the sell. They're not selling the movie. They're selling Washington.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they don't have to try at that point. It's like they have like the fucking trump card, you know?
Yeah. The scenes that Viggo Mortensen and Denzel Washington have together, how insufferable do you think the two of them are on that set? Because the two of them both take their craft so goddamn seriously.
Oh man.
Anytime that like they're on Colbert or any other talk show or whatever, it's almost painful to listen to them talk about making movies or being on stage or whatever, because like there's no fun or joy in it to be had by them. It's almost like, who's the guy that I always forget his name. I can see his face. He's married to Charlize Theron. Sean Penn.
Oh yeah. Like that level of like perfectionism.
Yes, they are both. All three of them are the same when it comes to their craft, their art. This is not. There's no joy to be had in movies. It is art and it is craft, and they're gonna put out the best they can, and they are the best at what they do because of it. But like listening to them talk about it is so insane. Like you listen to Nicolas Cage talk about it, and you're just like, shut up, dude. You're in movies because it's fun and because it makes you money. But you listen to them talk about it, and you're just like, oh my God. I'm sorry. It's getting warmer here. Let me loosen my scarf while I listen to you because, like, But I was watching them in scenes together, and I was just imagining, like, what was it like at the craft services table when the two of them, on filming day, when the two of them were filming with one another? What was it like hanging out, waiting for the set to be reset for the next take? Like, right. I can't imagine what that would be like.
That was actually you talking about this made me think of it, but I wanted to mention like the main reason Denzel agreed to do this movie is because he wanted to test himself against he wanted to go head to head with Gene Hackman, because he had so much respect for Gene Hackman that he wanted to kind of like really test the limits of his acting, and like they fucking accomplished every bit of that.
It
with,
is
like, their scenes together.
Impossible to understate the powerhouse in this era that was Gene Hackman.
Man.
He's always been a powerhouse, but in the 90s, he had already had a full and very prestigious acting career. I have to imagine that the A on the list was Gene Hackman and the B on the list was Denzel Washington at this time. Denzel Washington would have been big already, but he wouldn't have been Gene Hackman big. So yeah, that I cannot imagine being in the room with Gene Hackman. Oh my God. The fact that he can play a good guy or a villain and somehow they're the same character. Like,
Yeah.
I don't understand. Like, he has so much charisma in everything he does. Like, I was watching this movie and I was like, I guarantee you, if the MCU had happened earlier, we would have had him instead of Tommy Lee Jones in Captain America.
He would have been so good in that.
He would have been so good as that general, the founder of S.H.I.E.L.D. You and I are about to have a conversation you're not going to like. He's still scrawny. Yeah.
I'm not gonna kiss you.
I'm not going to kiss you. Oh, man. Anyway.
It's got me jonesing to go seek out more Gene Hackman movies because I've seen obviously like a bunch of his stuff, but I would like to watch more because
I cannot separate him from Lex Luthor because when I was a kid, that was
so good at,
the movie I watched again and again and again.
Like,
yeah,
like think of like how like,
and think about Lex Luthor in those movies. He's very cartoonish. He's very comic booky. His schemes and plans don't really make sense. They make sense when Gene Hackman is laying it out, though.
Oh yeah,
because he's so good, and he's basically a cartoon, but he's also menacing at the same time because he's so nonchalant about the shit he's doing. Yeah,
like
he's so good.
The entirety of the fucking tone of that series of movies is just like all in the charisma of Christopher Reeve and Gene Hackman,
and it works.
Like, and it just works. Like, it just melded together perfectly. It's like such good fucking casting.
It works so good. I want to watch that documentary, that Superman documentary about Christopher Reeves, the Superman.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. I heard about it though.
Yeah, it's supposed to be really good. It hit HBO not too long ago.
Nice.
Yeah, Gene Hackman, he's one of those I don't always care to watch everything that he's done, right? But when I do watch something, he's going to be one of the best parts of it.
Absolutely.
And then Denzel Washington has just been a blind spot for me. He hit my radar with Book of Eli because every time I thought of Denzel Washington, I thought of like the movies my parents watched where nothing really ever happens. It's just Denzel Washington vibing at the camera. So I never had a whole lot of interest in Denzel Washington. I watched Book of Eli. I was like, what the fuck is this? That's not Denzel Washington.
That's the thing though. It's like it's part of the reason that happens is because like Denzel has like a very like unique career in that he's done fucking everything. He has done everything.
He doesn't seem the kind of charisma he has. He does not seem like he would have much range. But the truth is, he has a ton of range. It's just the way he portrays it. It makes him a very good kind of, I don't want to say everyman because his characters are usually a specialty type character, a specialist type character, like a Man on Fire and stuff like that. But it gives him that almost everyman persona because, like in this, like listen to the way Ramsey talks versus the way he talks. They're both military experts. One is a little fresher than the other. One doesn't have the experience of the other. But like, Gene Hackman talks like a guy that his mind is fucking made up because of 30 years of experience. Obviously, he knows best. And you can see that as a character flaw, but at the same time, as the captain, everything starts and ends with him. So he kind of has to be, that's part of the job description in a way. And then look at Denzel Washington, like coming in. He seems, while he's more by the book and he's studied more of the philosophy and stuff, and Gene Hackman points out the year at Harvard, and he didn't like that much. He just kind of talks more like a normal average person in this situation, right? Like, he just kind of presents himself that way in every movie. So there's definitely more Denzel Washington stuff that I need to discover.
Yeah, he's wonderful. He
I just don't want to talk to him about his art.
right. Yeah, he's an interesting dude. When you go back and like, he's one of those where you scroll back through his like IMDb and you will see every fucking genre known to man. Like he's done all of it. He just, not to the extent like Nicolas Cage, where Nicolas Cage has literally been in every movie that's ever been created. But it's pretty interesting.
Did you
Just to look
hear?
back.
Did you hear recently? This is a good spot to put this in here. Talking about like Nicolas Cage and stuff. Like when I said when you listen to Nicolas Cage talk about his art, like what he thinks is interesting about a character. I'm like, they offered you a job with a paycheck and you said, yeah, that sounds like fun. Give me the money, please. Like, don't try to sell me on your bullshit, Nick Cage.
I really,
But
I really saw the creative outlet of my intensity with Freddy Fazbear.
yeah, basically, if you listen to him talk about that movie, you just kind of nailed it.
Yeah.
Listen to him talk about like playing Dracula and stuff too. But did you hear recently? Jim Carrey ran out of bullshit like live on mic.
Yeah, I've actually heard about this. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the podcasters I listened to must have played this clip 10 times, and if he didn't play the clip 10 times, it felt like he did because he was also mimicking it every time he played it again. But Jim Carrey famously said after the second Sonic the Hedgehog movie that if the script was penned in gold and delivered to him by angels, he would not be in another Sonic the Hedgehog movie. So he's in Sonic 3. And someone asked him on the red carpet, put a microphone in his face and was like, you said penned in gold, delivered by angels, would not do it. Why are you in this movie? Like, what convinced you to come back for the third one? And he's literally like, well, like first off, I get to play a genius, which is far-fetched for me. But also I bought some stuff and I need the money. Like he literally just runs out of bullshit.
He just said that verbatim, and I love that he did.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I love Kirsten Dunst too, because she had some movie coming out, or maybe she was going back to stage, and they asked her, was Sony taking over Spider-Man again, and with the whole Spider-Verse stuff going on, if she would ever show up playing Mary Jane again. And she was like, yeah, I've got kids and I'm taking care of my mother. Those movies make a lot of money. They pay you a lot of money for those. Yeah, I'll be in a heartbeat. Like, I fucking love you for that.
I love their candor. It's like just like the facade of the like just the whole shtick about like movie making is like this whole craft. It's like, yes, it is a craft, but it's also a business,
Yeah. Ralph Garman and Eddie Pence could not stop laughing at that Jim Carrey clip. And Ralph played it like, I swear to God, he played it 10 times. He literally hear him hit a wall and just say, fuck it. Because he's just like, well, I get to play a genius, number one. That's a bit far-fetched for me, but I do get to play a genius. That's fun. And, yeah, I bought some stuff and I really need the money. Like,
now the ultimate quote that I've talked about on this podcast before, but I'll say it again because it never gets old. But when people were talking to Michael Caine about the Jaws sequel he was in, and he was Jaws: The Revenge was not a particularly good movie, but the house that paycheck bought was a lovely house.
Oh God.
Man, fucking icons, dude. I love it. This has been our Crimson Tide coverage. Glad we finally got a chance to check it out. I've been jonesing to watch it again, and I had a blast watching it again. So you got to tell me the next time you get around to watching this. Like, I think you'll like it even more when you.
I didn't really know what it was about, and I was like, "Are you gonna watch it with me?" And my wife was like, "She was like, what's it about?" And I'm like, "That's Denzel Washington and Gene Hackman on a submarine." She was like, "No, I'm good." And when it was over, I was like, "You really should have watched that movie. I think you would have liked it." And she was like, "What's it about?" And then I told her, and she's like, "That kind of sounds interesting." And I was like, "I think you would have liked it had you watched it." Because I didn't really know what it was when she asked me. So I described it in like the worst way I could describe it.
It's so like they're like almost as like to tie it all back together. It's like there's no bullshit to it,
The bullshit really tied the room together.
They You just have this dude's philosophy, this dude's philosophy. They're both right, they're both wrong.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's it. That's the fucking movie.
And I would really like to see the Venn diagram of how your politics influences which one you're kind of backing through the movie. Because Denzel is definitely framed as the protagonist. But if you really start breaking down the movie, they are both protagonists and they are both antagonists.
And at the same time, there is no antagonist.
Yeah.
The antagonist is a hypothetical future of World War III.
The antagonist is the goddamn broken radio.
Yeah, the antagonist is, what if you're wrong? What if I'm right? You know, the
antagonist is what if.
Yeah, the antagonist is, what if we end up on the wrong side?
The consequences is probably the best way to say it.
Yeah, what if we end up on the wrong side of of history
of a shooting war? Yeah.
It's fantastic though. If you would like to follow the show more, you can follow us on Twitter for show updates. We are at SPR Filmcasts. It's been so long since we last recorded, I almost forgot what our Twitter handle was, which is not a good sign. You can leave us any ratings or reviews on whichever platform you found us on. It always helps us out. If you did find us on YouTube, please be sure to like and subscribe. And if you have any prompts or questions that you would like discussed by Ron and myself at the beginning of the next episode, you can always drop them in the YouTube comments. If you have any friends or family members that are in the movies, you can always recommend our show. That's the easiest way for our podcast to grow.
5-star rating, positive text review.
Yeah, all et cetera, et cetera.
Et cetera.
And with that, Ron, what are we covering in a couple weeks?
It's funny you mentioned Michael Caine, because I have the Christmas pick this year. And I want to do some Muppet Christmas Carol because I don't think we've done it yet.
Good pick. I love that movie so much.
I love this movie so much. And I'm not a big fan of Christmas to begin with. So I get burned out of Christmas really fast. And Christmas music these days starts in June. So I'm usually burned out on Christmas music by the time we start getting to Christmas. But to me, it's not Christmas time until I hear some of the songs in this movie.
Dude.
One of them in particular.
It takes 6 months for that song to leave my brain.
Yeah, it's so good. My favorite Christmas movie is in here. God damn it. My favorite Christmas song is in here. And my favorite song in this is not a Christmas song, but God, Marley and Marley is so good.
Marley and Marley is the one that refuses
to leave your brain.
Yeah. Oh my god, but it's so good. I always go back for another viewing the next Christmas. Because I also am on record as being anti-Christmas for the most part. I'm the fucking Grinch when it comes to that shit. But I love that movie, and I'm not even a huge Muppet guy. Like, I like the Muppets, but I didn't really grow up on them that much. Didn't watch I watched a few of the movies, but not many. But I fucking love that Christmas Carol one.
The most confused. I just thought of this because you specifically brought up the Muppets. The most confused I've ever been was at the Video Game Awards the other night. Statler and Waldorf were there.
Interesting.
That pause you had said everything.
Only thing that was more confusing was the Elden Ring DLC thing.
Well, that's a standalone game. That's even more confusing.
Yeah.
But yeah, fucking Muppet Christmas Carol, man. Let's go. Michael Caine acting his ass off surrounded by puppets.
Fucking love that.
This is one of my favorite performances he's ever given. And it's in a movie surrounded by puppets. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great.
Also qualifies as a horror movie because of the little fucking ghost puppet murder face thing. What's the fuck is it?
Christmas Past.
Is Christmas Past the one that's the thing that feeds on the souls of children?
Yes.
Yeah. Fucking terrifying. The scariest thing I've ever seen.
Scarier than nuclear war.
I would rather go fucking mano a mano with the creatures in The Descent than stare at that fucking murder puppet. That thing is terrifying. Fucking Christ.
Yeah, the song that the Ghost of Christmas Present has is the one that
it's fantastic.
I can't get it out of my head, and to me that is the quintessential Christmas song because it embodies everything Christmas is supposed to be, but also has the message of you should really be acting this way year round, not just at Christmas time as part of the song.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's a really good song, and the guy voicing Christmas Present has a really good Santa Claus-esque voice that he's singing it in.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Everything about this movie is gold. So
is it still on Disney Plus? I'm assuming.
Yep,
streaming.
It is. Okay. All Things Muppets are on Disney Plus. If you're a subscriber, you can also rent this on Amazon and Apple TV.
Sweet.
But yeah, odds are you've got Disney Plus, so you've already got the movie. I believe that also means you have the Zemeckis Jim Carrey one, which I like that one too. If you've never seen that version, Jim Carrey.
I don't think I have.
In true Robert Zemeckis fashion, Jim Carrey is Ebenezer Scrooge, and I believe he's all three ghosts.
Was that the one that's in like the same art style as like Polar Express, kind of like that same kind of like animation?
Yeah, it's Robert Zemeckis, so he only does that art style.
I'm such a fucking it's so weird. I don't normally like Christmas stuff.
Look at the cast for that movie.
The Christmas Carol one?
Yeah, the Jim Carrey Christmas Carol one.
I'll have to check it out.
It's see, I'm pulling it up real quick. It is
we will just real quick. Like we'll talk about it when we get to the next episode on it. But like, I'm not usually a big Christmas guy, and I'm not a big fan of Charles Dickens typically. But I love A Christmas Carol. I think it's just a perfect story.
Yes, I love that movie. I love that story. And there's if you have an Audible subscription, Tim Curry does an Audible only reading of it that is
oh shit, I'm fucking downloading that like tonight.
That is no additional charge. If you have a subscription, you just have it. Okay. Cary Elwes, Bob Hoskins, Jim Carrey, Colin Firth, Gary Oldman.
Holy fuck,
Robin
dude.
Wright.
Jesus.
Written and directed by Robert Zemeckis.
Yeah, I gotta watch that. I might just like do the fucking trifecta and just like listen to the audiobook and then watch the Muppet one and then watch the fucking Jim Carrey one.
It's so good.
I think a big part of like why it's like laser targeted at me is because like
a horror story.
When I first read it, I was in like 7th grade, 6th grade, something like that, and like we were forced to read it for school, and like I'm sitting down to read it, and when you realize it's a horror story, I was just like, oh shit, this is actually something I can get down with. It's a Christmas horror story. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, also, it's great.
As someone who was forced to read the cliff notes of Great Expectations, the fact that it's only 150 pages instead of 15,000 pages of nonsense. It's like, Charles Dickens, why are we spending 20 pages describing the rotting cake on the table? Like, for the love of God.
Yeah.
Like, come on, dude. Man was actually getting paid by the fucking word back for fucking Great Expectations, man.
Jesus Christ.
Jeez. Brutal. I'm excited to watch the Muppet Christmas Carol, though. That movie's genius.
The other day, I was like, it's time to start watching this. And then I was like, no. I already know my pick. I'm just going to wait till I get on the podcast until it's homework. And then me and the kids are going to sit and watch it. And I might do the Jim Carrey one too. Because I've only seen it the first 500 times that I watched it because we had it in IMAX. So
yeah, the IMAX for sure.
Yeah. So there was a lot of getting up at certain moments and turning the audio on in the booth.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Batman Begins, coincidentally, the audio turned on and stayed on my entire shift in Batman Begins.
Hell yeah.
But Muppet Christmas Carol.
Yeah, we've talked about
Waka
it before.
Waka.
We probably didn't think about it in like that aspect when we have discussed some of the best adaptations of all time, like we did specifically. I know we did when we covered The Martian. The Muppet Christmas Carol might be.
It has no business being as good as it is.
It might be in the running for the best adaptation of a thing. Like, not even kidding. It might be in the running as one of the best adaptations ever made because it perfectly encapsulates the original thing while also like amplifying other aspects of it with its characters and with the songs.
But while
and stuff.
also undercutting the intensity to make it children appropriate. Like it's a family movie and the story is not. It's not a family story. It's
beautiful beautiful
So well
adaptation.
done. So much better than it
And-
has any right to be. And then you've got Gonzo as Charles Dickens being the narrator, and just Rizzo the Rat just eating at every opportunity and calling out his bullshit. That's so
Are
good.
Gonzo and Rizzo, are they the Ron and Jeff of the Muppets? I feel like they probably are.
I feel like they probably aren't, because Rizzo's always eating. I'm probably Rizzo. Like,
and
you're never going to sell any apples if you eat them all. I am creating scarcity. It drives the prices up. Like,
yeah, that sounds like something we'd say. But yeah, check that out and follow along in a couple of weeks for our Christmas special. It'd be a lot of fun. Yeah, thanks for listening to our part 2.
Real quick, Gonzo has a quote that is definitely something you would say, because he's describing everything perfectly that Scrooge is doing inside his house from outside the house. And Rizzo's like, how can you possibly know that? How can you possibly know what's going on right now inside the house? And he's like, I'm the narrator. Storytellers are omniscient. And then he immediately turns back to the camera, says, and then Scrooge lit a candle in the front window, and the window lights up right when he says it. And Rizzo's like, how does he do that? Like, he's just like, I'm the storyteller. We're omniscient. Like, so good.
Yeah, I'm excited to check that
No
out.
cheeses for us Mises.
So be sure to check that out and follow along in a couple of weeks. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Michael Caine is probably my favorite Ebenezer Scrooge out of all the adaptations, by the way. The
Yeah.
size of a tangerine.
The size of a tangerine.
I'm so excited, Jeff.
Oh man, yeah.
For the
Is that our first time? Is that our first time having Michael Caine
I believe it is
on this podcast? That's disgraceful. But I'm glad we're remedying that now.
Yeah, we haven't talked about it yet, but because I've been sick and stuff, we're recording this a week late. So I am targeting this to come out on like the 14th or 15th. But even if this comes out on like Sunday or Monday, I'm still looking at the Christmas episode for the 28th.
For sure.
So
yeah.
I just want to point that out. This is our new schedule. We're not having 2 back to back or anything. This will be coming out on the 28th, the Muppet Christmas Carol.
Yeah, it just got shifted 4 feet like
4
like
feet
Japan.
closer to the U.S.
Yeah, it got shifted 4 feet further into the future.
I just had to mute my mic because of you. I just went into a full-on coughing fit. No laughter, but it was laughter caused.
You're welcome.
Oh my God.
Have a good night, everybody.
We're Marley and Marley.
Marley. Fuck you, dude.